Brian Wheeler, Antonio Harvey, joined on Trailblazers Courtside now by the Dean of Portland Sports Media. That would be Kerry Eggers of the Portland Tribune. Kerry, welcome to the program. As always, thank you for making the effort to come on in to do so. And we look ahead to where the Blazers are now, and as we said, a game better than they were at this point a season ago. Are you surprised by their record through 35 games?
A little bit, absolutely, because of the competition has been so good. I thought that road trip was a tremendous success for them. They've got another one coming up at the end of this month. It'll be another test, but they're a game and a half behind Golden State for the best record in the league, a game and a half ahead of Memphis in third. Really what they want to do is they're going to get the division crown. There's no question about that. So they'll have home court advantage in the first round. And I think I wrote this last week. You guys know I'm not usually make these kind of statements. I think they're as good as any team in the league. And if they can stay healthy with the two key guys, with Aldridge and Lillard, I think they could win it all. I really do.
You know what I love about it, Kerry, is last year they did it by just flat out scoring teams. But now, and Wheels throws these stats out there, and I'm going to ask him to do it now. How many games has this team won while shooting under 40%? How many games have they?
Did it last night. Yeah.
They're I believe with the victory last night, I think that's 12 or 13 wins, shooting less than 45%.
45%. So, and they've held the opposition to under 40%, like 13 or 14 times
after doing it 7 times all of last year.
Exactly. So I mean, it's a different team. And,
it is,
and that's what impresses me.
Yeah, the defensive end is where they're much better, and on the bench with Kaman. Kaman's been very consistent. They still, I think they could be a little better. I'd like to see some of those young guys. C.J. McCollum, he hasn't come along like I thought he would. Thomas Robinson shows flashes. If one of those guys could come and be a little more consistent, they'd even be tougher.
As you look at great Blazer teams of the past, there's always been some significant individual players that are still talked about so fondly today. It sure looks like when all is said and done that LaMarcus Aldridge and Damian Lillard might be looked upon as good a pairing as any that we've had.
You know, it's funny. I covered the first year I covered the team. Wheels was in 89-90. That was when Drexler and Porter led them to the first time they went to the finals. That year it was against Detroit. I don't think either of them is as good as Clyde in his prime, but I think the pairing of Lillard and Aldridge is as good as Terry and as Clyde were. And I think Lillard already in his third year is comparable to Terry. Terry was a clutch player, a very good shooter, a leader, and Damian shows all those qualities. Damian's a little quicker than Terry. I think Terry might have been a little more dependable. Lillard still has some of his nights, but I'll tell you what, he is an incredible player. He really is.
Yeah, and I tell you what, and I always try to bring it back because I was a big in the NBA. I always try to bring it back because so many people pay so much attention to Dame that they forget how dependable LaMarcus is. I mean, even on a bad night, he gets you 20 and 10.
And last night was kind of a bad night.
Right.
You're right. He had 21 and 8 and shot 8 for 20, but he still was in there at the end and did. You're right. I mean, he has and his rebounding the last 2 years has been so consistent.
You and I have talked many times about I'm always fascinated by where your mind goes in terms of your decisions on the stories that you decide to write. And this was one made a little easier for you with the Blazers' next game coming up because you always try to highlight the Portland products that go on and do some very good things, whether it's in Portland or somewhere else. And obviously Eric Spoelstra is at the center of all of that, a guy that's been involved in a couple of championship teams, but faced with a new challenge in Miami this season.
Boy, what a difference a year makes for the Heat. Eric's in his 7th year as the head coach of the Heat. Last 4 years getting to the finals with LeBron. Now there's no LeBron. Everybody knows that Eric is the son of John Spoelstra, who was a general manager here for years and grew up, was a Jesuit high.
Don't make that. You can't make that.
I was very close to making a mistake there. Sorry. Jesuit and University of Portland grad. But anyway, I had a talk with him. The story is going to appear on Thursday, and they're 15 and 20. It's been a rugged go. They just, they've not been able to get any kind of cohesion. Their bench has not helped them much, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do the rest of the season.
Well, not having Chris Bosh, I'm sure, hurt because, when Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh are together, they still have some pairing. And then you add Luol Deng. I actually thought they'd make the playoffs, and they still might.
Well, I think most people thought maybe 3 to 5, maybe 6, and they're 8 right now, and they're clinging on 8, and it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, I think.
I think the disappointing thing for Eric has been that at home they've been so bad. I mean, they're a 500 team on the road.
Lost a lot of close games at home. He talked about that, and they got a good win the other night against Brooklyn, and he's hoping that'll be a springboard.
No. Tell him no.
It won't.
Won't be a springboard. He's got to come in here and take an L.
I'll let you tell him that Thursday night.
He can spring as much as he wants on Friday, but on Thursday he's got to take another lump.
Yeah, 5-game road trip for them starts with the game against the Blazers on Thursday. Let's talk about the fact, obviously, the great thing about what you do now is that you have the ability to cover a whole lot of sports, whatever's happening. Next Monday, it's going to be a significant day, potentially the first ever national championship game in college football, the true one anyway, and the Ducks are involved with Ohio State. When you look at significant sports accomplishments in this state, where would it rank if the Ducks win a national championship?
If they win, it'd be number 2 behind the Blazers in '77. I really think so. There's in fact, I don't think there's any argument. It's the historic first national championship game, and if they could win that, it would obviously supersede what they did in 2011 and eclipse anything that's happened in this state except the Blazers in '77.
Wait.
Are you thinking maybe one of the women's basketball teams?
No. I'm just trying to figure out because you guys.
He was thinking the Hops had a great year.
No, you guys have both said the same thing. The first ever national championship.
True one.
The FBP football.
Listen, if you ask Baylor, they felt like they should have been in there. So there's still some controversy surrounding.
No, but it's going to be what's awarded is it's going to be the first because it's the first playoff.
They're actually playing it on a field instead of right.
Yeah, it's not a poll. Yeah. It's a playoff.
Listen, y'all need to stop trying to diminish the mighty and power of the SEC. That's all.
No, they did that fine on their own.
I'm watching you.
What was their record so far in the bowls?
See, people always have to bring up the past.
This is only the recent past, like last week. I mean, we're not talking about ages ago.
People always, you got to live.
You were about to bring up the past, so you're going to tell us all the many championships they'd won in the past when we weren't really. Those were fictitious national champions.
We need to live in the present.
Only when it's convenient to your argument. That's what it boils down to.
Oh man!
Remember, we had you converting a little bit.
I am.
Here.
Go Ducks.
But I do think they're going to go to 8 teams very soon, and that'll get and I think that's a good number. 16's too many. You don't need that. 8 will get you enough that you can play. The eventual champion is going to be one of those 8 guys.
And it only adds one more week. And I think everybody was like, oh no, it's only one more game, and that's not that big a deal. I actually like the way they did it. What college football has done is they took something that was extremely controversial, made it less controversial, but kept it just controversial enough so that when they expand to 8, everybody's like, oh, it's about time. They know this is a planning process. They want to make sure that they maintain interest in all 4 of the bowl games, all 8 of the teams. Proper planning by the NCAA. Well, who's in charge of it now? I don't even know. NCAA.
Well, it's called Football Bowl Playoff.
FBS, is it Football Bowl Series?
Yeah, that's something like that.
It's not the BCS anymore, which is the good thing. Because if it were the BCS, we wouldn't even have the game we have Monday.
The BCS was just BS.
For a lot of people, it was.
Wow.
A lot of people, it was. That's for sure. The great thing about, of course, what you do care is that not only can you write some great things weekly in the Tribune, but you get a chance to, I don't know where you find the time, but you get a chance to expound on your thoughts and your ideas and put full books together. And your most recent accomplishment in that respect, a book done on the great rivalry which has been the Civil War, and a massive undertaking to be able to figure out what deserved to go in a book that has had a history like the Civil War has had, and what maybe you needed to leave out. I'm sure there was a whole lot of editing that needed to be done, but the book has been out for a while now. I know you've had a lot of autograph signings with Ducks and Beavers of the past. How is it doing? And we want to make sure everybody knows exactly where they can get a copy of it if they don't have one already.
First of all, there were things that I actually had to cut out, but it's 547 pages.
Wow.
And Sports Illustrated, in their little review they gave, they said, this is a book all Oregonian sports fans will be interested in, but you better have some time on your hands. So I could have been, certainly could have been shorter, but, we talked a lot about, where we're going to go with it. I just decided I was going to try to get something out of each era. Got a lot out of the recent eras. There's been some great teams on both sides in the last 15 years, and, I hope that I was able to pick the highlights throughout the 120 years of the rivalry.
Will the Beavers ever really make it a rivalry? Because it hasn't been a rivalry in a while.
Yeah, not well. It's probably not as long as you think. And in 08 and 09, the Beavers were playing for the Rose Bowl, and the Ducks beat them in both of those games. But you're right. I mean, the Oregon has the upper hand, and I don't think Oregon's ever going to fall out of about the top 25 programs with their infrastructure. So it's going to be on Oregon State to get up there. Gary Anderson's a very impressive guy. We got a story Thursday. We talked to him yesterday. He talked about his coaching staff. He's got a tremendous tremendous coaching staff. He really does. It's very impressive. So we'll see what they can do. Can they get up to where the Ducks are? I'm not sure about that.
Now, that being said, about the Ducks, and I agree with you certainly the way things are set up now, but you remember the days when, there were scoreless ties in the Civil War. So did you think in those days that we would see a day where the Ducks would compete for a national championship in football?
No, I think people that were in this state thought Oregon State were in the doldrums forever. I mean, really. I mean, they got used to it. It didn't change until the late 80s when Oregon got to the Independence Bowl. Then in the late 90s, Phil Knight got interested, and, boy, the results are startling.
And people talk about that Independence Bowl. Would you think if we had to trace one maybe significant thing that happened that kind of catapulted things or got the process going in earnest, was it that Independence Bowl?
What happened was they had to promise that they would sell X amount of tickets. It seems to me it was a high number. It was either 15, 20, 25,000. Bill Byrne, the athletic director, guaranteed that to get them there. They were a 6-5 team. They weren't a great team, but they got to a bowl game, which was the first one in 26 years, and all of a sudden they were a bowl team, and the next year that they were a little bit better, and I really think that was very important to their success.
What else is happening when you talk about the Ducks as a whole? I mean, people get caught up in the football team. They have, obviously for good reason, but this is an organization now, for lack of a better term, but
it is an organization.
Yeah, the basketball team is doing better. The track, it's becoming a destination school for sports.
The facilities are, as I'm told, as good as any in the country, Tone, and they really, I mean, every year the football stuff is incredible. If you guys haven't seen their stuff they've got with the Mashofsky Center and the Cass Center and all the things they've got down there, it is amazing. But not just football. I mean, the Matt Knight Center is a beautiful arena, and all the way down the board. And when you got facilities like that, and you've got Nike in your hip pocket, they've got a lot of things they can sell to recruits.
I know you had a great article with the president at Oregon State right after Mike Riley left, essentially to ask, what is the commitment here? I mean, and on the one hand, we say because of what the Ducks have committed, that forces the hand of the Beavers to either get in or be second fiddle for a long time. And it appears they're, at least on the surface, trying to do the right things to be there. How realistic is it for them to be in the same conversation in terms of competing for national things as the Ducks do?
Let me just give you an example of their commitment wheels. This Utah defensive coordinator came to Oregon State. He was the defensive coordinator at another Pac-12 school. After he left, the athletic director issued a statement that we offered Kalani Sitake 3 years at $750,000 a year plus incentives to $800,000 a year to stay here. He went to Oregon State instead. Now, I asked Gary Anderson, I said, did you pay him more than that? And he says, I'm not going to get into that, but it's a substantial contract. So listen, you think that's higher than what Mark Banker made last year? It's got to be twice. It's unbelievable the commitment they've had. But I don't know, in getting back to your question, can they get to where Oregon is? I'm not sure, but I think they're going to have a chance. They're in the next 3 or 4 years to see what they can do.
Do they have any other openings?
They've got a quality control position.
No, that's a problem.
Perfect. I was about to say quality. As soon as you said quality, I was out of the running.
He might, I think the past, in Georgia,
would work for half of that.
Yeah, but he worked for a good salary in college.
Did he have to take a pay cut when he came to the NBA?
I think he might have.
See, that is not at all true.
It's a good story.
I was the only guy in NCAA basketball that did not get paid by his school. Yep. At least
that's a good story.
That's the story I'm telling, and that's the story.
So
I'm
do you believe stipends is the next thing to come for the student athlete?
I think it has to be.
Yeah.
I think that
How do you regulate that though, so it doesn't get out of control?
Well, hang on, I got to address this because it's something that happened in the semifinal, in the Ducks semifinal game. I'm watching the game. It's a nationally televised game. How many people do you think were watching that game? Would you?
It was
huge ratings.
Huge ratings. I had an item in my column on it.
There were there were commercials for 2 schools during that game. Oregon, right, and Florida State. That's it. So when people talk about athletes not deserving to be paid, Oregon doesn't get that exposure in front of that many people if they don't get to that game. And they don't get to that game without those guys on the field. Mm-hmm. And if they got 10% of the people watching to send in an application, they won. So for me, the idea that athletes don't deserve to be paid because they're getting a free education, they bring a lot of money into those schools and a lot of opportunities. So, yes, they absolutely deserve some sort of a stipend.
And with the TV money now, Wheels, I think it's there that they should get a share of that.
Not a big one.
I think that's the next step, figuring out how much and how to do it without maybe some extra things being added.
Oh, no, that's still going to happen.
The school presidents are meeting this month and that'll be a major item of discussion.
Yeah, I was glad to see they made the move to send the families to the championship game, which was a nice deal.
Right. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. My mom got to see me play one time. Okay. Never mind.
She was only supposed to see you play one time. That's as far as people know. She only went to one game. Produce evidence that there was more than one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had to think about that for a second.
I think the statute of limitations has long ago expired.
I'll tell you what, the coach that recruited me out of high school is at Oregon right now. I guarantee you that program is on the up and up.
Wow.
Robert McCullum.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.